You know that incredibly frustrating moment when your smartphone it just starts glitching out completely?
Oh, yeah, like when the battery drains in, what, an hour?
Exactly. Your
Yeah.
battery's completely dead, apps are freezing, and your immediate instinct is, well, to just download a fix.
Right. You go find some shiny new battery management app or a RAM clearer.
Yeah, you install it, and you fully expect your phone to just miraculously run like it's brand new.
But, I mean, the reality is you're really just applying this surface level patch to a foundational problem.
Right.
If the core operating system, the actual hidden code running quietly in the background, if that is hopelessly outdated or, say, corrupted, it genuinely doesn't matter how many productivity apps you install.
It's basically useless.
Exactly. The hardware is eventually going to crash.
Right, the interface might look fantastic, but the software is actively sabotaging you from the inside out.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And I want you to keep that exact dynamic in your head, because today we're taking a deep dive into a concept that argues your bank account operates in the exact same way.
Which is such a wild thing to think about.
It really is. I mean, think about it. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth, almost like gravity, while others are just, stuck in this exhausting, lifelong financial struggle?
No matter what they do.
Exactly. Regardless of how many hours they work or how many of those budgeting apps they download.
I mean, it really is the ultimate question of personal finance, isn't it? We always want to point to things like intelligence or a better education or, pure luck as the deciding factors.
Oh, for sure. But according to the focus of today's deep dive, it's actually none of the above.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Today, we are exploring a massively popular, and I should say incredibly controversial book. It's called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker.
Ah, yes.
And his central, totally uncompromising claim is that your financial success is not dictated by your job or your intellect or the broader economy.
So what is it dictated by then?
He argues it is dictated entirely by your subconscious money blueprint.
A money blueprint. Okay, yeah, looking through the stack of sources we've gathered for this, which, by the way, spans Eker's foundational writings, his practical workbooks, neuroeconomic research, and some remarkably heated critiques, it becomes really apparent why this specific philosophy strikes such a nerve.
Oh, the reactions are completely polarized. I mean, you have an army of readers who credit this exact book with completely rewriting their financial reality.
Read the success stories.
Yeah, but flip the coin and you have fierce, articulate pushback from financial professionals, ex-bankers, and these massive Reddit finance communities.
Oh, they do not hold back.
No, they don't.
Sure.
They call the entire premise a predatory snake oil pitch that basically just actively shames people for being poor.
Yeah, it's intense. And to understand how a single concept can spark that level of debate, we really need to bypass the surface level budgeting advice for a second and look at part one of Eker's philosophy.
Right, the foundation.
Exactly. This is the core. How our minds were programmed to perceive and handle money long before we ever even had a credit score.
She calls the money blueprint.
Yeah.
And on the surface, I know that sounds like a catchy marketing term, but the sources actually ground it in some very tangible, very real childhood psychology.
Yeah, it's essentially the subconscious programming that we acquire during our formative years. Eker proposes that every single person has an internal financial thermostat.
A thermostat, okay.
Yeah. So if your internal thermostat is subconsciously set for, say, poverty or middle-class struggle, you will unconsciously make decisions that bring your bank account right back down to that temperature.
Wait, even if you suddenly make a ton of money?
Exactly. Even if you win the lottery or land a massive promotion, you will find a way to cool it back down to your comfort zone.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he didn't just theorize this, right? He actually lived it.
Oh, he definitely lived it. Eker was what he called a self-described success junkie in his 20s. He read all the self-help books, he attended the seminars, he had all the theoretical knowledge, but he just spectacularly failed at several businesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the disconnect between his ambition and his actual reality was so severe that he had to move back into his parents' basement 3 separate times.
3 times. It's rough.
Yeah. But the turning point happened when he took a $2,000 credit card advance to open a retail fitness store.
Okay, so another business venture.
Right. But this time, instead of just trying another external business strategy, he actually looked inward at that operating system we were talking about.
Interesting.
He realized his subconscious fear of failure, and actually his quiet resentment of wealthy people was overriding his conscious desire to be rich.
So his internal code was sabotaging him.
Exactly. Once he addressed that underlying code, He grew that single store into a chain of 10 and eventually sold half the company to a corporation for $1.6 million.
Wow, okay. So the obvious question here is, who wrote that original code? Like, how does this internal blueprint get built in the first place?
Well, Eker breaks it down into three primary avenues of childhood programming.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is simply verbal programming. So this is the passive absorption of everything we heard growing up.
Oh, I see. Like phrases like money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes. Or rich people are greedy, or we simply can't afford that. Eker says those aren't just passing comments to a child, they actually solidify into an absolute financial logic.
Wow. So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. I can see how that creates a massive internal conflict.
Oh, completely.
Because if your parents repeated that rich people are greedy, right?
Eh.
And your core identity is built around being a good, generous person,
Yeah.
then your subconscious brain is going to literally sabotage your ability to accumulate wealth.
Because it's protecting you.
Right. It's protecting you from becoming the bad guy in your own family narrative.
Exactly. You will find ways to unconsciously dispose of money so you can remain a good person. It's fascinating.
That makes so much sense. What's the second influence?
The second programming influence is modeling. So this is what we observed our parents actually doing with money. And Eker shares a deeply personal story about this one.
Oh,
Yeah, in the early days of his marriage, he and his wife fought constantly about their finances. They eventually realized they were operating on entirely conflicting blueprints based on their parents' modeling.
right. I remember this from the sources. Because his wife grew up observing a dynamic where women didn't really have financial control.
Right.
So her subconscious equated money with immediate pleasure. Like when you get it, you have to spend it immediately because it just might not be there tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. While Eker, having grown up with very little, possessed a blueprint that equated money strictly with freedom.
Ah, so to his subconscious, the more you hoarded, the safer you were.
Exactly. So you have one person desperately trying to buy security and the other is desperately trying to buy immediate pleasure.
And they're just colliding inside the exact same joint checking account.
Precisely. Which brings us to the third influence, specific incidents.
Okay, what are those?
These are the highly emotional, visceral childhood experiences involving money that essentially burn a permanent behavioral loop into our brains.
Oh, like trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say a child repeatedly watches their parents have screaming matches over a stack of medical bills at the kitchen table.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is. The child's nervous system actually links the concept of money directly to acute emotional distress and conflict.
So then as an adult,
As an adult, whenever they start accumulating a little bit of wealth, their brain perceives it as a threat. It's a source of conflict, so it triggers them to just get rid of it.
wow, it's literally a profound survival mechanism. Your brain is prioritizing your emotional safety over your financial stability.
It really is. So, returning to your smartphone analogy, you are walking around today trying to execute a complex wealth building app, right? Like during a business or investing in stocks.
Right.
But your foundational operating system is riddled with these emotional bugs and contradictory rules written 20 or 30 years ago. The app is inevitably going to crash.
But the good news, Eker argues, is that you don't have to be held hostage by a corrupted hard drive.
No, you don't.
If the code is outdated, you can rewrite it. And that actually leads to part 2 of his philosophy, the actual methodology for aggressive reprogramming.
Yes. This is where Eker introduces his 17 wealth files.
Oh, wealth files.
Right. These are stark side-by-side comparisons of the subconscious beliefs of wealthy people versus the beliefs of poor and middle-class people. And, I mean, we should acknowledge right now that his language here is deliberately blunt.
Oh, it's incredibly blunt.
Labeling mindsets strictly as rich or poor is absolutely designed to be jarring.
Especially wealth file number 1. Eker writes that rich people believe, quote, I create my life, whereas poor people believe, quote, life happens to me.
Yeah, he takes a completely unforgiving stance on the victim mentality.
He really does. In the book, he boldly states that there is no such thing as a really rich victim, because complaining and justifying your circumstances is financially fatal.
Wow. Yeah, it requires taking 100% ownership of your financial reality, which is honestly a very heavy burden for most people to accept.
For sure.
But this ties directly into wealth file number 5. Rich people focus on opportunities. while poor people focus on obstacles.
That is such a fascinating distinction in how the brain actually calculates risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if an average person looks at a potential investment or, I don't know, a career change, their brain immediately runs a simulation of all the ways it could end in absolute disaster
Right, they get completely paralyzed in the research phase.
because their primary directive is to just avoid loss.
Exactly. The wealthy mindset, according to Eker, looks at the exact same data set and says, well, it will work because I am going to make it work.
They assume they can handle the variable.
Right, so they take educated risks and just adjust course while in motion.
You know, the file that really struck me was wealth file number 10, which explores this idea of being an excellent receiver.
The poor receiver syndrome.
Yes, Eager identifies that a massive portion of the population suffers from a deep-seated, unworthy story,
We feel inherently guilty receiving large sums of money.
or even just receiving a compliment.
Yeah, that's so true. Eker points out the undeniable logic that giving and receiving are basically two sides of the same coin. For every giver, there is a mandatory receiver.
Right.
And he uses this brilliant analogy here. Money is like rain. Rain doesn't have a moral compass, right? It doesn't care who it falls on.
Okay, I like that.
If you block yourself from receiving that rain because of internal guilt or a feeling of unworthiness, the money doesn't simply vanish.
It just flows down the street to someone else.
Exactly, to someone who has their umbrella turned upside down, willing to catch it.
Wow. Okay, so identifying these negative mentalities, like the victimhood, the obstacle focus, the poor receiver syndrome, that all makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, boy.
The actual method he prescribes to install these new wealth files is where things get genuinely bizarre.
Cesar is a good word for it.
He instructs readers to perform these daily physical declarations. You are supposed to stand up, place your hand over your heart, state a specific intention out loud, and then physically touch your head and declare, I have a millionaire mind.
Yeah, it is an intensely physical, almost theatrical daily ritual.
I have to be honest, reading that section felt completely ridiculous.
It does feel a bit silly.
Right. Standing in the middle of my living room, touching my forehead, and just shouting affirmations into the void. It sounds like a parody of a 1990s self-help infomercial. Does this actually do anything?
Well, what's fascinating here is that our critical sources actually validated this specific technique.
Wait,
Yeah. We examined a scathing review from a blog called Bankers Anonymous. It's written by a former banker who possesses zero tolerance for financial gurus.
okay.
But even he concedes that these cheesy declarations are rooted in proven cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, mechanisms.
Wait, so there's actual neurological utility to touching your head while talking?
Absolutely. Think about it. When you are trapped in a subconscious negative loop, say, the urge to make a terrible impulse purchase to soothe anxiety, your brain is running on autopilot.
Right.
By introducing a physical tactile gesture and linking it to a verbalized intention, you actually force your brain to switch tracks.
Oh, wow. So the sensory input overrides the automated rumination.
Exactly. You are literally pulling your prefrontal cortex online to process a new conscious thought.
That's incredible.
The reviewer noted that while it is incredibly easy to mock, if touching your forehead successfully interrupts a self-sabotaging financial habit, it's actually a highly effective neurological hack.
Well, that completely reframes the exercise for me. It's not about magically manifesting a pile of cash from the universe.
No, not at all.
It's a deliberate disruption of your own automated self-sabotage.
Precisely.
But okay, even if you perfectly rewire your brain, a healthy mindset doesn't automatically pay your utility bill, right?
Unfortunately, no.
You have to translate those new thoughts
Yeah.
into physical mathematical behavior at the bank.
Which brings us directly to Eker's actionable money management system. This is designed to enforce these newly installed wealth files in the real world. He calls it the 6JRs system.
The 6JRs. And the foundational principle here is fascinating because Eker insists that the habit of managing your money is vastly more important than the actual amount of money you are managing.
Yes. The structure requires you to divide every single dollar of after-tax income into 6 highly specific accounts, or jars.
Okay, break it down for us.
First, 55% is allocated to necessities. That's your rent, groceries, and basic bills.
Okay, makes sense.
10% goes into a financial freedom account, which is essentially the golden goose. It is strictly for investments and creating passive income, and you are forbidden from ever spending the principal.
Never bet it. Got it.
Right. Then you allocate 10% to long-term savings for spending, which covers rainy day funds or large upcoming purchases.
Okay.
Another 10% is dedicated to education, ensuring you continuously invest in your own
Oh,
skills.
I like that.
Then, 5 to 10% is earmarked for give, allowing you to support charities or help others.
Very cool.
And finally, 10% goes into the play jar, which must be spent on things that make you feel genuinely wealthy and abundant, like a ridiculously expensive dinner or a massage.
Wow. Okay. So it is a very rigid mathematical blueprint intended to balance security, growth, and the emotional enjoyment of wealth.
That's the goal.
But I have to say, it immediately crashes into reality for a lot of people.
Oh, itchily.
When we looked at the Reddit threads from the personal finance community, users completely tore this formula apart.
Yeah, they were not fans.
One user rightly asked, how is a single parent supposed to allocate exactly 55% of their income to necessities when their rent and groceries currently consume 110% of their paycheck?
It's a very fair question.
It feels incredibly tone-deaf, like a system designed exclusively for people who already have thousands of dollars in disposable income.
Yeah, that is definitely the most common and valid critique of the system. However, Eker's response to this reality is famously uncompromising.
What does he say?
He argues that the math scales down to the micro level.
What does that mean?
He says even if you literally only have one single dollar to your name, you must divide that dollar.
You're kidding.
No, seriously. You take 10 cents and put it in a jar labeled financial freedom. You take another 10 cents and drop it in the play jar.
Oh, come on. Taking 10 cents for play feels insulting when you can't pay rent. What does that actually achieve? You can't even buy a piece of candy with 10 cents.
Logically, it achieves absolutely nothing.
Right.
But psychologically, it moves mountains. Remember the core premise here. We are entirely ruled by our subconscious blueprint and our habits.
Okay.
By physically dividing that single dollar, you are signaling to your nervous system that you are no longer a passive victim of your financial circumstances.
You're taking control.
Yes. You are no longer just surviving paycheck to paycheck. You have stepped into the identity of an active money manager.
Ah, I see. So it's about breaking the muscle memory of poverty.
Exactly.
If you tell yourself, well, I'll start managing my money once I finally get a raise, you're reinforcing the exact habit that guarantees you'll never have enough to manage.
Right. The habit is the point.
So by dividing the dollar, you are building the neural pathways of wealth management, even if the dollar amounts are currently totally irrelevant.
Precisely. You are acting out the identity of a wealthy person until the external math catches up to your internal reality.
That is a fascinating psychological flip.
It is. But this immense friction between Eker's aggressive, no excuses mindset rules and the very real systemic financial struggles people face daily, that brings us to the elephant in the room.
Yes, it does.
This book and Harv Eker himself are surrounded by massive controversy.
The pushback is incredibly loud, particularly from that Bankers Anonymous review and those Reddit finance communities.
Let's start with the upsell because it is glaring.
Oh, yeah. The former banker who reviewed the book flat out called Eker an insufferable jerk.
He really did.
He noted that Eker spends the first several pages basically just endlessly bragging about being a multimillionaire.
The bragging is definitely a common complaint, but the reviewer highlights a much more insidious issue.
Which is?
The book operates as a high-pressure sales funnel.
Ah.
Throughout the text, Eker continuously promotes his live Millionaire Mind intensive seminars run by his company, Peak Potentials Training.
Yes. The reviewer paints this awful picture of Eker as almost like a carnival barker.
Exactly.
The book offers readers a quote-unquote free ticket to a seminar, which critics describe as this emotionally manipulative environment designed to upsell attendees into $2,500 weekend boot camps.
Then it goes higher than that.
Right, and eventually $15,000 intermediate training courses. Like, I'll give you the first secret for free, but the real magic costs 15 grand.
Yeah.
It severely damages the integrity of the psychological advice.
It casts a huge, long shadow over the material, and the Reddit users actually attack the underlying logic itself.
But they do. They point out that Eker's entire philosophy relies on a massive cognitive blind spot known as survivorship bias.
Yes. Survivorship bias is huge here.
It's the logical error of focusing only on the people who made it past a certain selection process and completely ignoring those who didn't.
Right. We are reading a book by a guy who cultivated a positive mindset and made millions.
Exactly. But what we aren't seeing are the thousands of people who stood in their living rooms, did the exact same daily declarations, maintained a perfectly positive mindset, and still went bankrupt due to a medical emergency or a market crash.
Because highlighting those failures would completely destroy his premise.
Of course it would.
Claiming that mindset is the absolute only variable completely ignores the statistically proven impact of luck, systemic privilege, inherited wealth, and macroeconomic timing.
Which leads right into another deeply problematic psychological concept highlighted in the sources.
The just world fallacy.
Yes. If Eker is claiming that wealthy people are rich because they have a superior mindset and poor people are poor because they have a toxic victim mentality, he is essentially saying everyone gets exactly what they deserve.
And that is a very dangerous idea. The just world fallacy is a cognitive bias we use to protect our own egos.
Also,
Well, it is terrifying to accept that you could do everything right and still fail due to random chance or systemic inequality.
right, that's a scary thought.
So, believing that the world is perfectly fair and that poverty is simply a personal failing, that provides psychological safety.
It tells us we are safe as long as we just think the right thoughts.
Exactly. But empirical data on generational poverty and social mobility directly contradicts that narrative.
So what does this all mean?
That's the big question.
Is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind actually a valuable tool for rebuilding your financial reality? Or is it just a deceptive map designed to lead desperate people straight into the author's incredibly expensive gift shop?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, synthesizing all of our sources, the answer actually lies somewhere in the middle.
Okay, lay it out for us.
We cannot, and we should not, ignore the predatory guru marketing tactics or the dismissive attitude towards systemic poverty. Those are massive red flags.
Absolutely.
However, we also looked at neuroeconomic research from the Associated Journalism and Media Network, and the science actually backs up Eker's foundational psychological claims.
Wait, really? How does the science bridge the gap between the controversy and the advice?
The research details something called the scarcity bandwidth tax.
The scarcity bandwidth tax. Okay.
Yeah. When a person is operating from a mindset of deep financial fear and scarcity, their amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, is constantly firing.
Because they're stressed out.
Exactly. This chronic stress literally reduces the cognitive bandwidth available to the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning and impulse control.
Oh, wow. So a scarcity mindset biologically impairs your ability to make smart financial decisions.
Yes.
So by utilizing Eker's tools, like those tactile CBT declarations to interrupt anxiety, or the 6JRs to build a tangible sense of control and abundance, you are actually calming the amygdala and bringing your prefrontal cortex back online.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence, mastering the fear of loss, and consciously shifting from scarcity to abundance are scientifically validated requirements for building long-term wealth.
So the underlying mechanism actually works.
It works.
It sounds like the ultimate lesson here is to extract the utility and discard the packaging.
Yes, perfectly said.
Take the time to examine your childhood money blueprint. Utilize the CBT-style physical interruptions to stop self-sabotage.
Right.
Start dividing your income into those 6JRs to build the identity of a money manager, even if you're only sorting dimes.
Exactly.
Just make sure you politely decline the invitation to the $15,000 ballroom seminar.
Yeah, please decline that. It requires being a really critical consumer of the information. Take the psychological framework, but leave the high-pressure upsell behind.
Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We started by exploring how our childhood experiences wrote the original operating system for our current bank account.
You did.
We broke down Eker's aggressive strategies for rewriting that faulty code using the wealth files and physical declarations. We examined how to ground those new beliefs in reality using the mathematical 6JR system.
Right.
And we navigated the intense, highly valid criticisms surrounding survivorship bias, the just world fallacy, and the ethical concerns of his marketing funnel.
It is a multi-layered exploration of a very influential text. But before we conclude, exploring the tension between the book's promises and its critics raises a final, vital question to consider.
Oh, what's the final thought?
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind demands that you obsessively monitor your thoughts, completely rewrite your identity, and rigorously manage every single dollar to acquire wealth.
Right.
The core thesis is that your income will only grow to the extent that you do. But if you spend your entire life meticulously hacking your internal code, constantly touching your forehead to correct your thoughts, and tying your entire sense of self-worth to a constantly expanding net worth, Are you genuinely achieving financial freedom? Or have you simply voluntarily locked yourself inside a much more expensive, demanding mental cage?
Man, that is a phenomenal question.
Right.
If your entire identity is consumed by the pursuit of managing the money is ultimately still the thing dictating your identity.
It is the paradox of making wealth your ultimate internal measure.
That is something to seriously reflect on the next time you open your banking app. Remember, downloading a shiny new budgeting tool won't fix a fundamentally broken operating system.
It really won't.
Take some time today to look quietly at the code running in your own background and be honest about who wrote it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we will catch you on the next one.